Ohio. Tehran, the capital and the largest city of Iran and one of the largest cities of Asia. Administrative center of the same name. Astana, political, economic, transport, trade and financial and cultural center of the country. This city is located in the north of the country at a foot of the ridge Elburz, in 90 km to the south from the coast of the Caspian Sea. The population of Tehran with suburbs. Big Tehran exceeds 13 million people. Tehran differs in an extreme variety of national and confessional structure. The basis of the population of the city is made by Persians, Azerbaijanians and Mazandarans. The main religion Islam. Besides, at Tehran there are large ethnic and religious minorities: Armenians, Assyrians, Kurds, Jews, Baka, Zoroastrians. There are several theories of origin of the name Tehran. According to the official site of the city, the name of the city comes from the words bottom and outdate slope. Thus, the word Tehran can be deciphered as Tehran, a hillside foot, that is Tehran, the city at a hillside foot. This theory is submitted realistic as Tehran is in fact located on the southern slope of Mount Tokal. Other theory says that Tehran comes from the name of the Parthian city the Tyrant, which was located near the modern capital of Iran. The name Tyrant is translated as Monastery of the Shooting Gallery, god of a rain in Zoroastrian mythology. It is interesting that near Tirana there was a city of Mekran, Mekkar's monastery, god of water, who is dormitory area on the outskirts of Tehran now. Earlier both of these cities were a part of Ray, which is also the suburb of Tehran today. Follows from the third theory that Tehran means the warm place, contrary to the cold place, to Shemiran, the area in the north of the city. Tehran is in the north of Iran, in the province of the same name. He settled down in a mountain hollow, on the southern slope of Mount Tokal of the ridge Elburz, separating the city from the Caspian Sea and on her slopes. The city is extended, along a hillside, from the north on the south on 26 km and from the west on the east on 40 km. The area is about 1550 km. The difference of height within city line makes nearly 700 am. Of 1100 in the south till 1800 in the north. The northern districts of Tehran, Shemiran, are at the height up to 2000 m above sea level, and the southern suburbs, Ray, Sultanabad, closely approach the territory of the stony Kavir Desert. Tehran consists of the old city reconstructed in 1870-1872 and the new city which began to be under construction in the 1940th years. In time planning structure, the regular quarters of the 19th-20th centuries cut by rectangular network of streets with areas. Azadi Square, Argentina. Squares, fountains and built up with multi-storied hotels, banks, office buildings in the spirit of modern Western European architecture, and also mansions, cottages and 10-12-story houses prevail. Modern Tehran extends to the north, the northwest and the northeast due to formation of numerous new areas. Aryamikar, Tehran Pars and others. Northern areas less others are subject to pollution, and there the most wealthy residents of Tehran live. The central regions occupy as a rule, offices, banks and other institutions. In the south and the west, is closer to the desert, the industrial enterprises are located. Tehran and Ray belong to large suburbs of Tehran. In a northern part of the city, recreational zones with a pond chicker are built. Tehran is located on the inclined plane between a mountain chain of Elbrus in the north and the Selene-Kiver Desert in the southeast. Therefore, in northern districts of the city, climate cool and damp, whereas in southern, hot and dry. The climate of Tehran is subtropical, droughty. The hottest month, July, the coldest, January. Because of features of a geographical location of Tehran, amplitude of fluctuation of temperature reaches 65 C. Snow drops out generally from November to March, but in the most part of the city snow lies in January and February. Sometimes happen in the winter quite hard frosts, by the standards of so low geographic latitude of the city. The average annual amount of precipitation -214, the most part drops out in the winter, in the spring and in the fall. In the summer, rains are extremely rare. Tehran, especially central and southern parts of the city, suffers from the polluted air. The city is often covered with a smog that becomes the reason of various pulmonary diseases. The ecological situation is besides one of the largest factors of mortality in Tehran. According to data of the Mayor's Office of Tehran, in 2006 the diseases caused by a smog became a cause of death of 10,000 residents. The smog appears in many respects from behind high concentration of the industrial enterprises. In spite of the fact that the system of the Tehran subway has several lines, it is insufficiently developed for transport needs of the population. Connects among themselves only a small part of districts of the capital. Therefore, people are forced to use buses and the personal vehicles, while the most part of cars in Tehran is released in the 1970th, the 1988 years and doesn't conform to modern ecological requirements. Also, the Tehran Merabat airport is located within the city. An important role is played also by physiographic position of Tehran. The city is located on the northwest outskirts of the Selene Desert, and the mountain chain complicates the movement of damp air from the Caspian Sea. For pollution abatement, the Mayor's Office urges motorists to refuse gasoline in favor of liquefied gas. Entrance to the central regions of heavy load cars is forbidden. Excavation shows that the settlement of people on the place of modern Tehran existed in the 6th millennium BC. Settlers arrived to Elbrus' slopes, escaping from hot heat of Selene deserts in the south. Initially, Tehran was the village located in several kilometers on the northwest from the city of Ray, one of the most ancient cities of Iran. Agriculture, in particular, cultivation of vegetables and fruit, was the basis of the economy of Tehran at this time. Destruction by Ray's Mongols in 1228 became a push to the eminence of Tehran as political center. Residents of the destroyed city directed in almost untouched Genghis Khan Tehran. It is known that in the works relating to 1275, Muhammad Zachariah Ghazvini describes Tehran as the important trade city. At this time, Tehran was divided into 12 areas, waved, which were operated by military. Generally, urban development of the 13th century represented the clay or cutout and rocky breed dwellings. The similar type of settlements can also be found in the territory of northern Iraq. In 1340, Tehran is described by Hamdullah Mustafi as one of 4 areas of Varamina, the city largest at the time in the local Mongolian province of Al-Kanadav. At the same time, the restored Ray already passed under the actual management of the Tehran authorities. In July 1404, Spaniard Rui González de Clavijo, following to Samarkand with diplomatic mission to Tamerlan, became probably the first European who visited Tehran. He describes him as the large city in the north of which the residence Timurdav, and Ray as the abandoned settlement is located. The plan of Tehran of the beginning of the 15th century was restored thanks to a certain location of funeral temples of Imam Zayd. So, for example, Imam Zayd Said Ismail, the most ancient monument of architecture, was in Tehran, then on the southern border of the city. The northwest tip of Tehran was in the modern area of the Palace Golestan. Since 15th century, Tehran, in search of cool air and sources of water, began to expand actively on the north. City quarters appeared on rich Tokal slopes. About 1469, the historical suburb of Tehran, the city of Ray, Afanasy Nikitin, who mentioned him in the traveling notes of Hoshinai for 3 Seas, visited. Tehran arose as the Safavidsky city garrison because of the strategic situation in the beginning as gate on the North Arn cited 624 days. In 1553-1554, the Shah Takhmasp, second governor of a dynasty Safavidov, built in Tehran a market and also city walls from 114 on number of surahs of the Quran. Cannon towers. Safavida chose Tehran as one of the main bastions as, on the one hand, in Ray there was a tomb of the ancestor of a dynasty of Sayyid Hamza, with another, Tehran became a traditional haven for Shiite refugees by then. Safavida were the first Shiite dynasty of governors of Iran. Slightly earlier, Takhmasp was forced to transfer the capital from Tabriz to Ghazvan. 150 came to the west from Tehran, in connection with threat of taking of Tabriz of Turks. Takhmasp regarded Tehran as the possible residence in case of direct threat to Ghazvan. The European travelers specified that city walls are disproportionately powerful for the small provincial town. Their perimeter made 8 km, they surrounded the territory of 4.5 km. Thus the population of Tehran didn't exceed 20,000 people. The constant residence in Tehran, called Chaharbagh, 4 gardens, is built by Abbas II. By order of Suleiman I in the city build the whole palace. Sofa Khan, where in 1721, on the eve of invasion into Iran of Afghans, the last Shah Safavidov will accept the Ottoman Sultanate of 3. At last, the real construction boom occurred in Tehran in the 18th century. The governors Zendav who succeeded Safavidan began to build up actively government quarter. Karim Khan ordered to build in Tehran a palace, a harem and residences for public institutions. Possibly he intended to transfer the capital to Tehran, but later capital functions were transferred to Shiraz, the ancient capital of Persia. With death, Karim Khan fight between loyal Zendam Kafir Hanum and Muhammad Khan Qajar is started for Tehran. March 12, 1786, Muhammad Khan entered Tehran and finally transferred the capital there. The choice Aga Muhammad of Khan was reasonable on similar concern on control of both northern and southern regions. He knew that the population of Isfahan and Shiraz wasn't loyal to last dynasties. Tech Ali Shah, Muhammad Qazau's nephew, brought the most powerful contribution to construction of Tehran. In particular, in the period of his board in Tehran, Marble Palace and Shah Mosque were constructed. By 1830, the population of Tehran reached 150,000 people. At Muhammad Shah Qazau, Tehran went beyond city walls. Luxurious palaces were built in the north of the city, on slopes of Demavend. At Fakoli Shah in Tehran, the Russian embassy which arrived to be presented to the Shah from Tabriz, led by Alexander Griboyedov, who died at this collision, was crushed. On February 11, 1829. The most large-scale reconstruction for all history of Tehran began in 1870 at Nasreddin Sheikh. He ordered to blow up all ancient fortification constructions, and on their place new city quarters appeared. The old wall was destroyed and built new, in the form of the wrong octagon, 19 km long. Through those places where 12 richly trimmed city gates were located, the trunk mains conducting to the city are laid today. Besides, at Nasreddin Sheikh, reconstruction of a large number of buildings was carried out, and also the centralized water supply system is built. By the end of his board, 1897, the population of the city exceeded 250,000 people, the majority of whom lived behind city walls. In 1925, Iran was headed by Reza Pahlavi, and in the 1930th years the city endured one more updating. By order of Reza Shah Pahlavi, Nasruddin's walls were destroyed, and on their place wide avenues are laid. A large number of foreign architects were invited by the Shah for construction of new buildings for the public and commercial institutions. Among them there were also Russian architects Nikolai Markov, Elbrus School, Vladislav Gorodetsky, railway station, and others. After reconstruction, the square of Tehran increased more than much in comparison with Tehran of times of Fakoli Shah, having made 46 km. During World War II to Tehran, the USA was fled by several thousands of Polish prisoners released from camps of Siberia and Kazakhstan. They settled in Tehran and founded the Polish cemetery in the city. In 1943 in Tehran there took place the International Conference of Heads of Governments of three allied powers of the anti-Hitlerite coalition, the USA, the USA and Great Britain, on which approximate terms of opening of the Second Front were determined. A contradictory history connected with group of the German spies who were allegedly sent to Tehran for Roosevelt's murder is described in the Soviet feature film Tehran-43 and in the Russian historical movie Duels. True story. Tehran-43. At the conference, guarantees of independence and territorial integrity of Iran after the end of war were also announced. After war, the population of Tehran reached 1 million people. At Mohammad Pahlavi, the last Shah, many ancient constructions of the old city were destroyed as the Shah believed that they don't fit in modern Tehran. On the place of unique fortification constructions and palaces, standard skyscrapers, or wide highways are nowadays located. From the beginning of the standard housing estate, which peak fell on the 1960th years, Tehran finally lost the medieval charm. The Shah moved with family on the city north to Niavaran. In 1969 Shemiran was included in structure of Tehran, then expansion on the north stopped. According to the new town planning doctrine, the city began to develop on the west and the east. Urban development closely approaches Karadzic. In the west of and in the south of the city huge industrial regions are built. Sharp jump in prices of oil in the 1970s and the energy crisis which followed it in the west gave a new push to development of the city. Shah intended to use super profits from export of oil for construction of the new district of Tehran, which would become a symbol of the power of Pahlavi. The project of Shakestan was ready in 1976, however money quickly ended and the area wasn't built. On September 8, 1978 in Tehran, as well as in all Iran, demonstrations of opponents of the Shah mode which soon developed into Massachusetts actions began. The first such large performance took place in September and was dispersed by police. Government forces under command of the military commandant of the capital General Ovaisi and the chief of Capitol Police Mehdi Rakimi rigidly dispersed demonstrations, using firearms, however protests accrued with the strengthened rage. The economy of Tehran practically got up because of total strikes. On January 16, 1979 the Shah, not in forces to resist to protesters, forever left Iran, and on February 1 millions of Tehranites met the disgraced Imam Ruhollah Khomeini sent from the country for 15 years before. In the city skirmishes between communists and their opponents began. On February 9 grandiose street collisions during which for 2 days Khomeini supporters took all government agencies, security agencies and police stations under control began with a small fight between aeromechanics and Shah guardsmen at Tehran Mehrabad airport. February 11 is celebrated in Iran as the Revolution Victory Day. 2 months later, under sentence of Islamic Revolutionary Court Gholam Raza Nikpi, the mayor of Tehran in 1969-1978. Besides other charges, incompetence in management of economy of Tehran was shown him. Was executed. On the other hand, his predecessor and the successor Javad Shahrastani remained the mayor of the Iranian capital and after the revolution victory. On November 4, 1979 militant students occupied the American embassy which staff remained in captivity 444 days. After the Islamic Revolution the name of many streets and areas in Tehran were renamed. Shakhayat Square. Memories of the Shah. Began to be called Azadi. Freedom. Aryamaker Street. The Sun, the Shah's title. Tupkane Square. Artillery. Hammam Square of Khomeini was renamed into Sharif. The Noble. During the Irano-Iraqi War since May 1985, Tehran was regularly exposed to firing by the Iraqi R-11 rockets that involved the considerable victims among the civilian population and destruction. Closer to the end of war, spring of 1988, the intensity of firings reached peak. In 6 weeks, the Iraqi troops launched 190 missiles on the city. Firing happened in response to similar, but much less intensive, rocket attacks of Baghdad. 2 Tehran refugees from the western and southwest provinces were flown down, and about 30% of Tehranites ran on the north of Iran. Besides, to Tehran the flow of refugees from the neighboring Afghanistan, where at this time there was a war too directed. In 1986, the city administration of Big Tehran, which occupied the area about 1.5 thousand km, was created. Tehran was divided into 22 city districts. Since the beginning of the 1990th territorial expansion of Tehran practically stopped. In 2001 in Tehran the subway is started. In 2007 construction of a tower Milad, which became the fourth highest construction in the world and the first in Iran, is finished. On June 27, 2007, in some districts of Tehran, the Massachusetts riots caused by the unexpected announcement of fast introduction of quotas for gasoline sale to individuals began. Dissatisfied motorists burned 12 gas stations. On January 19, 2017, as a result of major fire and the collapse which followed it, one of the highest buildings of the city, the Mall of Plaska, was destroyed. Under blockages, more than 20 firefighters died. In total, over 200 people suffered. The fire began about 8 o'clock in the morning, when most of dealers didn't come to the jobs yet. To the scene there arrived dozens of firefighters. However, the fire was so strong that the northern wall of the building collapsed, and behind it all construction failed. This tragedy became one of the largest accidents, as a result of which such number of firefighters at the same time died. When Tehran became the capital of Iran at the end of the 18th century, the population of the city made about 100,000 people. Within the 20th century, the population of Tehran constantly grew at big rates. In 1956, the government took a number of the measures limiting construction within the city and also amendments to family policy. In 1976, increase in population was 4%, and in 2000, 1.1%. Within the city, about 8.7 million people live, and with suburbs, the population of Tehran makes 13 million people, with nearby satellite towns more than 15 million. Such sharp growth of the population is explained by the fact that 60% of residents visitors. Pendular migration to Tehran makes about 1.52 million people daily, mainly of Karachi. Tehran is the largest Persico-Voriashi city in the world. The population of the city is so ethnically various that mixture of various languages and dialects led to emergence of the Tehran dialect of Persian, which became standard for Iran. The most part of the population of Tehran speaks also the Esfahan, Yazd, Shiraz, Jewish Tajik dialects, and also in Dari language. It is interesting that till the 19th century most of the population of the city was made by the Mazandernets, who are still compactly living in northern areas. The second in prevalence language, Azerbaijani. Besides, there are communities of Kurds, Kilianits, Lav, Baladzi, the Turkmen, Arabs, Armenians, Assyrians. Religion. The vast majority of residents of Tehran, Shiites, they make 96% of the population. Boka make 2.8% of the population, it is about 200,000 people. Christians are also available in Tehran. Followers of the Armenian Apostolic Church, Russian Orthodox Church and Assyrian Church treat them, first of all. Their quantity after the Islamic Revolution of 1979 sharply fell. The Armenian Apostolic Church is presented in Tehran by community from 120,000 people. In the city, 42 parishes of the Armenian Church and a set of the Armenian cultural centers, schools, libraries, sports complexes are located. About 10,000 people belong to the Assyrian Church. There are also 5,000 Chaldaic Catholics adhering to the East Syrian ceremony. In the city there are the Georgian Orthodox community, the Russian Orthodox community, with St. Nicholas's Church, and several various evangelic communities. The Jewish community includes 18,000 people. In Tehran there are 18 synagogues. At community there are also numerous schools and libraries. The Zoroastrian community includes 10,000 people. The community supports 2 temples of fire, a Tashkent. Muslims treat other religious minorities. There are insignificant communities of Sikhs, Hindus, Buddhists, Mandaeans, Yazidi and because of the military operations of the USA in Afghanistan and Iraq, Tehran became the main destination of a huge number of refugees from these countries, among which there are Arabs, Tajiks, Pashtuns, Hazaras. Refugees most often serve as cheap labor in quickly growing city. The most part of Tehran is located in the territory of Asia Creston Tehran. In the master plan of 1968, under jurisdiction of the capital mayor's office, 1,800 km were taken away. Outside these borders construction was forbidden as the remained flat earth was used for agricultural needs. But eventually rural settlements turned into the satellite towns of Tehran. Eslamshah, Darsanabad, Akbarabad, Quds, Shakhriyar and others. In 1996 the limits of the city were overstepped by limits of Asia Creston Tehran. The city line included areas in Shakhristan Shemeranat, North, Ray, South, and Eslamshah, Southwest. Tehran is divided into 22 city districts. The total area of these districts is 707 km. The last, in 1991, the 21st and 22nd districts, largest, were a part of Tehran, having stretched the city on 50 km. Along with city districts Tehran, it is conditionally divided into 112 areas. Nakiya. They have no own administrative facilities, being historic districts, but not administrative units. As a rule, areas have even no clear boundary. Often one area can be located in several districts at once. The municipal government is exercised by Islamic City Council of Tehran. Shuroi Eslamai Tue Shakhr Tehran. Council consists of 15 deputies elected by the population for 4 years. Islamic Council is responsible for management of city services, drawing up and observance of the city budget and for elections of the mayor. In turn, in each district of Tehran there is an office of council. The current mayor of Tehran, Mohammad Bega Galibaf, entered a position in September 2005, having released Mahmoud Ahmadinejad from this duty. Economy. In 1382, according to the Iranian calendar, 2003-2004 on a Gregorian calendar, the city budget of Tehran made 7.72 trillion rials, 1.93 billion rubles. At the same time, the debt of municipality made 3.4 trillion rials, 1 billion rubles. Before becoming the capital of Iran, Tehran was actually a large farmer village. With opening in Iran of large reserves of oil in the country, industrialization began. The welfare of Tehran quickly grew, the city expanded, having turned into the large economic center. Farms were destroyed, and on their place the plants and factories and also new residential quarters were under construction. To this day, Tehran remains the most important economic and industrial center of Iran. The industrial enterprises of the city give 35% of total value of industrial output of Iran, in them about 30% of workers of the country are concentrated. In particular, more than 50% of the textile and electronic products consumed in Iran are produced at the plants in Tehran. The various mechanical engineering and metalworking, 12 car assembly and aircraft factories, the repair plants, production of the radio equipment TZ, washing machines, refrigerators, etc. Chemical, oil processing, metallurgical industry, production of building materials, glass and fluorophanes products, textile, food, including large tobacco factory. The tanning and shoe industry is developed. Handicraft works remained. The most part of the industrial enterprises is located in the industrial zone in the west of the city, between Tehran and Karadzic. Among especially large enterprises, Iran Kogra occupying the whole city district, releasing the cement cars. In Tehran there is a stock exchange on which in 2006 420 companies were exposed. The exchange was open in 1968, stopped the work after the Islamic Revolution and again renewed in 1989. The Tehran Stock Exchange is the state non-commercial association. According to the report of Mercer Research Institute in 2008, Tehran rose in the rating of the most expensive cities of the world by 44 points in comparison with 2007, having taken the place in this list 74 and having come to the fourth place on this indicator among the cities of the Middle East after Tel Aviv, Dubai and Abu Dhabi. In Tehran, several Russian companies whose activity is connected mainly with oil and gas and nuclear power work. Aeroflot, Russian Airlines, Atomstro, Gazprom, Substanzbenest, Airsit, Lukoil, Tatneft, Technoprom Exports. Tehran, the central knot iron and highways. Tehran, as well as all Iran, is known for the highways of excellent quality. Total length of highways in Tehran exceeds 280 km, platforms, bridges and outcomes minus 180 km. 130 more km of roads and 120 km of platforms are in process of construction. From the west, Tehran approached 3 highways which are actually duplicating each other: Old, Bolt, New, Karadzic Highway and Fatah Avenue. From the south, Saidi Avenue, Shahid Sanjuyan Avenue, Rathai Avenue and Havaran Avenue. Sultan-Sangan Highway leaves Tehran on the north through Elbrus and conducts in Mazandaran. Unlike the majority of the other large cities of Iran, in Tehran there is no ring highway. Instead of it, the half ring 32 km long which is bending around Tehran from the south was built. Large highways pierce Tehran from the north on the south and from the west on the east, among which there are Nawab Safevi Avenue, 18 km, and Azadi Street, Angalap, 41 km. In the north of Tehran there is the largest pedestrian bridge. The Tehran subway works since 2001. Now 118 stations operate on 5 lines which total length exceeds 220 km. The subway connects Tehran to the large satellite town Karats. One more branch goes south from the north to the city of Ray. Construction of 2 more lines is conducted. In total, in the next years it is planned to start 5 lines. Many metro stations are trimmed by national ornaments. The bus stop on special bus routes. Buses are equipped with lever-bottom doors. 2 doors, 2 turns. Separately for men, separately for women. The central railway station is located near Devavada. From here the railroads to Zanjan and Tabriz on the northwest, to Mashhad on the east, to Khorramshahr on the southwest and to Yaz and Bandar Abbas on the southeast disperse. The building of the station was built in the 1930th years on the project of the Ukrainian architect Vladislav Gorodetsky. High-speed railway communication acts on the line Tehran-Karats. Tehran is served by 2 airport terminals. The old Tehran Mirabad Airport is located in the west of Tehran within the city. Till fall of 2007 he served practically all international flights. In combination, Mirabad International Airport, base of the Air Force of Iran. Now the most part of flights is transferred to the new airport of a name of the Imam Khomeini, constructed in 30 km to the south from Tehran. The line of the subway isn't brought to Khomeini yet, however it is connected with Tehran the high-speed highway. In Tehran there is a network of bus stations, and buses servicing them move on the strip fenced from other cars. The central bus station and 4 additional terminals are intended for the suburban message. From the central bus station buses go practically to each city in Iran at very low prices. There is a large number of the agencies of the taxi. There is special service taxi for women. Taxi drivers work only within city line. Land public transport is presented by buses and trolleybuses. The jointed Skoda 15-tar trolleybuses, single buses of the Iranian brands Shahab Khodro, Iran Khodro are used. There is a network of the high-speed bus, Beard, including 5 routes where buses go on completely allocated strips. On routes of the high-speed bus, single cars of the Iranian Shahab Khodro brand and the jointed Chinese Kinglong, Youngman and Yutong buses are used. In 2016 a part of trolleybuses was subjected to capital repairs with change of design of a body. Automobile traffic jams are a pressing problem for Tehran. For fight against them, in particular, all city roads divided into 3 zones. Public, partially limited, with admission by numbers, and forbidden, used by buses, the taxi and ambulance cars. Boulevard Volyas, the center of both business and informal life of Tehran. It is one of the longest streets in Tehran, which stretched for 18 km from the south on the north. In prestigious northern quarters along Volyas, a huge number of financial institutions, embassies, expensive restaurants, boutiques and other institutions is located. Volyas, the favorite vacation spot of Tehranites and tourists, in particular youth. Near Boulevard Volyas, the only thing in the territory of Tehran, a public institution is located where probably to take alcoholic beverages, and it is allowed to women to go bareheaded, the so-called Armenian Club. However now, since 2016, the Armenian Club doesn't function as it is destroyed. An internal part by the fallen construction crane from nearby building. Quite large Christian Armenian diaspora, the government it is allowed to them to produce wine lives in Tehran and to use it, in the cult purposes, than other citizens as supervision of observance of Islamic laws since the revolution of 1979 considerably weakened quite often use. The majority of architectural monuments of Tehran belongs to a dynasty of Khajars. The Golestan Palace, till 1979 the residence of the Shah, and the Mosque of the Shah is best known. The palace is transformed to the museum. At Vesni, Maidani Baharistan Square there is a Kadzharsky Mosque of the Shahid Motakhari built by Nasreddin Shakim in 1830. The mosque occupies the space of 3,700 m. In the mosque the gallery is decorated with a unique ornament. In the mosque also theological faculty is located. In 1971 in Tehran Svoboda Azadi's tower on the occasion of the 2500th anniversary of the Iranian monarchy was constructed. It is possible to rise by top of a tower on the elevator and to admire the mountains covered with snow. In the south of the city Khomeini's mausoleum at the cemetery Bekhesh Sakra is located. 4 minarets 91 m high enter a complex. The Sadabad Palace in the north of the city, the former summer residence of the Shah. The complex includes several palaces and parks. Near it the Niavaran Palace is located. In 2007 in Tehran the television tower boards Himalad 435 m high, the fourth highest television tower in the world, was constructed. In the city large number of the museums. In the museum Abshin precious products from crystal, nacre, gold and lazurite are presented. Models of painting and calligraphy are stored in Reza Abbasi's museum. At the Museum of Carpets there is a school of carpet art. In the museum unique carpets are collected. Archaeological finds of pre-Islamic Iran are stored in the National Museum. Iran Bastan Museum. In the city there is an anthropological museum, the Museum of Islamic Art. The Museum of Shah Jewelry of the Central Bank of Iran is especially allocated. Also crowns of Shahs of Pahlavi are stored in them. Sadabad, the palace which is in the region of Shemiran. The complex consists of several palaces and pavilions, in some of them the Iranian Organization of Cultural Heritage is placed. In the Shakram Palace there is a military museum, and in other pavilions, the Museum of Water, the Museum of Fine Arts, the Museum Beksid and others. The Museum of Time where the big watch collection and other measuring instruments of time is stored is known. Also the museum is open in the building of the former United States Embassy. In Tehran there are about 800 parks, the most known of which Danish, Say and Shafrans. The Melit Park, which before revolution was called the Shah Park, one of the biggest in the city. In the downtown near the Tehran University, the Park Tulala is located. In his east part, the Museum of Agriculture, and in the western part, the Museum of Modern Art, in the northwest, the Museum of Carpets. In Near Verona there is a Damamshadai Park in which Teheranites spend free time. Open platforms and restaurants are located there. The Shakarbazi Park. Before Islamic Revolution, the amusement park was called the place of attractions. The Yukshikovsky Park on the outskirts of the city is broken in the Persian style, with the picturesque woods and artificial lakes, to whom it is possible to reach by the subway. Melet Park, National Park of Iran. Tehran, the most important scientific education center of the Middle East. The first higher educational institution, the Gift-u Al-Funan, was opened in Tehran in 1851. The Tehran University was founded in 1933. It is the Iran's first state university and the largest in the country. In 2011, the Technological University of Amir Kabir in Tehran managed to win the right to hold the 24th IPE tournament, the International Tournament of Young Physicists. In the city are located about 50 higher educational institutions, among which Army Officer University of the Imam Ali, State Military Medical University, Iran, Institute of the Higher Remote Education, Farabi, Institute of Theoretical Physics and Mathematics, Institute of Power, Iran, Iranian Research Institute of Polymers and Oil Products, Iranian University of Telecommunications, Research Institute of Oil, Iran, Karadsky Free Islamic University, Medical University, Iran, Medical University, Baykiatullah, Police University, Iran, Reisky Free Islamic University, Rudikensky Free Islamic University, Tehran International University, the Tehran Free Islamic University, the first office, the Tehran Free Islamic University, the central office, the Tehran Free Islamic University, Northern Office, the Tehran Free Islamic University, the Southern Office, the Tehran Free Islamic University, Medical Institute, Tehran University, Tehran Medical University, Tehran University of Applied Sciences and Technologies, Tehran University Hadith, Medical University of a name of the Shahid Bakheti, Research Institute of Information Sciences and Technologies of Iran, Scientific and Technological University of Iran, Tehran Ecological University, Technological University of Amir Kabir, the Technological University of Nasser of ad-Din Tusi, Technological University of Sharif, the University of Alam Tabatabai, Al-Zahra University, University of Aerodynamics, Iran, Badr al-Alam University, University of High Technologies, Iran, University of the Fine Arts, University of the Imam Sadiq, University of a name of the Imam Raza, University of a name of the Imam Hussein, University of Medical Sciences of Iran, University of Social Protection, University of Khwarezmi, University Tarbiyat Modars, University of Malik Ashtar, Technologies, Shakt University, University of a name of the Shahid Bakheti, School of the International Relationship. Iran. School of Economic Sciences. Iran. The Tehran universities, as well as in all Iran, are under control of the state. Despite it, the students traditionally are the main center of opposition to the authorities. So, students took the most active part in Revolution of 1979. In the summer of 1999, students of the Tehran University also initiated the disorders thrown on other universities and suppressed in 6 days. The first movie theater was opened in Tehran in 1904. Now more than 70 movie theaters, the largest of which, work in the capital of Iran. Pavement, Europe and Africa. Teherans have an opportunity to regularly watch movies of the Iranian and foreign production which, nevertheless, at first undergo testing of the Ministry of Culture. Tehran became the homeland of such famous directors as Abbas Kiarostami, Mohsen Makhmalbaf, Samir Makhmalbaf, Majid Madzidi and others. The image of Tehran appears in such movies as the drama Taste of Cherry. Kiarostami, 1997. For a variety of street life of Tehran and also the historical comedy, Nasreddin Shah, the movie star, is especially brightly presented. Makhmalbaf, 1992. Free interpretation of history of formation of cinema in Iran. The famous Soviet detective story, Tehran-43, contrary to the name, wasn't removed in Tehran. The Tehran scenes were shot in the pavilion of Mosul and in the historical quarter of Baku, the Acheri Shar. A cycle of verses of Sergei Yesenin, The Persian Motives, where, in particular, it is described how he, in blue colors of Tehran, treated a former wound in tea house, also peculiar invention. Yesenin never was in Tehran, and the cycle of verses, Persian Motives, was written to them to Bak in the suburbs, Mardukyanak. The Tehran Symphonic Orchestra, founded in 1937, acts in Rudaki's theater and, since 1971, in City Theater. Nevertheless, the theater enjoys in Iran variable popularity, especially among youth. Only 3 theaters in which plays are put work in such megalopolis as Tehran. Theater. City Theater. Rudaki and Bachman. Other auditoriums are used, as a rule, for musical performances. In Tehran and in all Iran, the special type of theater, Tazi, enjoys bigger popularity. Mourning. Tazi is the peculiar theatrical genre coming from Shiite religious traditions. The plot of such plays is tied around one event. Death of the Imam Hussein ibn Ali in the Battle of Karbala with the Caliph Yazid of 1. Such plays on the holiday Shaksivaksi are especially popular. Day of Ashur. The similar type of theater appeared in Iran in the 19th century in the period of board of Nasreddin Shah. Under his personal order in Tehran, the Bolshoi State Theater, Tekiyi, was constructed where these plays were put. This theater was destroyed during reconstruction of Tehran in the 1930s, however Tazi's tradition is still popular. The Tehran International Book Fair is held annually in May since 1987, one of the world's largest. So, the 19 book fair took place on the area more than 55,000 m. From sale of books, about $12 million were obtained in total. The Tehran International Animation Festival is held annually in February since 2002. The Festival of Arts is held annually since 2004. Massachusetts Media. The largest news agency in Iran, IRNA. News agency of the Islamic Republic. Founded in 1934. Other news agencies: Fars Mekar. Oppositional to the authorities, the news agency, Irandoct, is located in California, but has a possibility of broadcasting to Tehran. Also news in English, BBC Persian, and French are broadcast. Main daily periodicals: Jamhuri Islami Resalat Kakan Akbar, Tehran Emruz, and Idlat. Tehran Times, Kahan International, Iran Daily, Iran News, Leave in English. The Hamshar newspaper, most popular in Iran, also appears in Tehran. The edition is founded in 1992 by Capital Municipality. The Iran newspaper is the only state daily. Iran publishes News Agency of Iran of IRNA. Also State Organization for TV and Radio Broadcasting of the Islamic Republic of Iran. IRIB. Located in Tehran, under which authority 13 TV channels and 8 radio stations is responsible for television and broadcasting. Sport. Tehran was the first city on the Middle East where played Asian Games. The 7th Summer Asian Games took place in Tehran in 1974. 10 athletes from 25 countries participated in them. For their placement in the northwest of Tehran, the Olympic Village was built. In Tehran, the Azadi Stadium. Freedom. Largest in Iran, containing up to 100,000 viewers, where the soccer national team trains, is located. In the same place play the major games of Premier League. Other large arenas: Shahid Dastjardi, Shahid Sharudi, and Takhti. In the Iranian Premier League, 2 Tehran teams. Also there are clubs representing the lowest divisions: Sabah Bateri, Naft Tehran, Rakakan. Railroads: Badr and Tehran. Near the city quarters of Shemiran and Durbin, the ski resort is located. The alpine skiing complex is equipped on the Mount Tokal and is the 5th in the world on height. It was constructed in 1976. The highest point of a complex, 3730 m, is connected to Durbin by the 8-kilometer cableway. At Tokal's foot, hotels are located. Near Tehran also ski resorts Dizan, where there took place the Snowboarding World Cup, and Shamshik are located. In the town of Abi Ali, except ski slopes, there are tennis courts, a hippodrome. In 1995, about 27% of the population of Tehran lived below the poverty line, though the standard of living of the Tehran poor people considerably surpasses the standard of living needy of regions of the country. In 1996, the level of literacy of the population was 84.7%, average life expectancy -70.5 years. Poor Tehranites live, generally in the southern districts of the city, is frequent in slums. They are informally called living on stones. Kineshinan. Especially massive poor quarters are located in suburbs Eslamshuk and Chakardangach, with the population of 350 and 250,000 people respectively. In such slums there live, as a rule, immigrants and refugees. At the end of 1978, the poor south of Tehran became the center of anti-governmental revolts, to suppress finally which it wasn't represented possible. Using the temporary confusion caused by revolution, poor people built up the neighborhood of the city with slums illegally, often at night. Only for 1980 100,000 visitors, in 1986, 450,000 lodged in slums. It was connected with a known influx of refugees from Kurdistan and Afghanistan. In the early 90s, the mayor's office of Tehran began to make attempts to destroy illegal constructions. In August 1991, destruction of the settlement of Bajarabad caused disorders in suburbs which had to be suppressed by means of police. In March 1992, the group of veterans of the Irano-Iraqi War expressed a protest to the government of Tehran in connection with position of inhabitants of slums. Then disorders broke out again. At his suppression, 6 people died, 300 were arrested, 5 were executed subsequently. The last large performance happened in Eslamshuk in 1995. In Iran for centuries manufactured and used opium. In 1949, 11% of the population of Iran used drugs. In Tehran they were used by 1.3 million people. In 1999 in Tehran there were about 240,000 addicts, though this figure can be inexact as divergences in assessment of the Ministry of Health and the Union make up to 60%. In 2002, law enforcement agencies daily detained up to 150-200 drug dealers and addicts. Drug trafficking became the reason for the increased mortality, crime. For a fight against drug addiction in Tehran, the specialized rehabilitation centers open and propaganda is carried out. Tehran is located on one of the main ways of a drug traffic of Afghanistan and Pakistan on the west. The main ways go through the provinces of Khorasan and Sistan and Balochistan, through Tehran, further to Turkey and to the Balkans. Also far. Write comments. Read comments. Interesting people will tell interesting stories. All of good mood and good luck.